pretty good. You doing well?
Yeah.
Molly hasn't done anything for you to be the house husband again now, or?
Well, I had that stupid hemo thing.
Yeah.
It's not on now for 15 years.
She's still probably
And it will not flow.
Oh my.
So she's going to have to probably go back to hyperbaric chamber.
Thank you, Denny. I hope I did you proud by using
Or
that
something.
reference. Oh, gosh.
It's just been unbelievable.
Is here a good conversation on there?
Yeah.
Right there.
Very little tissue. So it's been a tough deal. But she did well.
Did they do a wound pump on it? They tried that?
No, we went to a wound center after the plastic surgery. You know, the plastic surgery, Mirage, you know, you can't move fingers. I think that's where it all started. It wasn't done properly. And so, you know, she was kind of back to square one. And, you know, they're trying everything, but I think we've got a really good physician. This doctor, we really like her. She's an Asian lady and came highly, highly recommended. So we see her tomorrow.
Well, probably goes, the arteries.
We're not a regular
I think that's always Chinese old Chinese proverb, comes out of the heel. So no wonder.
I'll take mine
Yeah.
and make sure my granddaughter
Arteries
gets
still
it.
coming out.
Family good? Everybody good?
Yes, we're all great. Blessed and loved. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for coming.
Okay, you're welcome.
Debbie, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a safe trip back. Yeah, so Debbie needs to get some of the recipients here to really understand. Ow. Think of that number of years in here. Never heard of it.
Just remember Ed Russell. You need to know that. And Ed was the one who got the loan. I didn't say that story right. I didn't get the loan. Ed did.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't hear that before. Oh,
It was when Ed came to town. Because Ed said when I came to town, I needed a loan. It was in '73.
and that's the way he was.
He said he asked him all these questions. Shook his hand and said, well, give me the money.
Yeah, Tom said to me, the Tom, somebody said, you know who you are. That was his words. He said, board meets Tuesday. Have a good day.
We only have 2 things left.
3.
No, one got continued.
No. Oh, yes. I didn't notice that.
So I didn't read it.
Where'd you see it continue? You looked on this before you read it?
I didn't read till yesterday at work.
And you saw it on here? I need to have it.
I spent the weekend.
So we need to, I need to talk to them because I would say that we have some. We don't need to. Instead of you,
Stuff you don't have.
sometimes you don't have it and that's impression start over.
Yeah, I came to work yesterday morning thinking I was gonna have to read last night, but we had 2 hours in the afternoon, so I read everything at work yesterday.
Yeah. They need to let us know it's continued. I didn't even know it was, I didn't even look at that.
I'm telling,
I never got a packet on that. I had to ask for it, and they said, no, it's gonna be continued, so I
Said
only
you're
had 1
allowed-
page to read.
said you're allowed to.
At least, yeah.
And I don't think it comes that way on, when I review it.
And I think what might have happened with that one is I think they had a notice issue for the planning commission. So they had to reschedule.
Testing, testing.
So you know that.
I've got notices covered for today. We've got jurisdiction.
Did you hear that, Jim?
Everything else is.
I got it.
You don't mention that.
So, yes, I can.
Actually, you need a motion.
Okay. Oh, that's right, we do. The future date. Yes, thank you.
So on the Eldorado Acres one, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, on and then just say something.
Check. Yeah, I gotta turn off my mic. So I'll be a presenter.
I thought it said Bob.
Yes.
That's what happens when I'm speaking.
We could hear you, Kurt.
Just pass on there, Julie, from here.
Okay, I need to set this in. Let me see what's happening here. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty good, huh? Nice. Nice. Remote. Oh, that's cool. Uh-huh. Right. That's cool. Nice. To pick it up and do it. Yeah, that's tough.
Commissioners, this is Troy Dunning, your host. We are live and recording.
Thank you, Ms. Dunning. Call us to order to the Board of County Commissioners Land Use and Public Hearing for Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. Would you all please stand and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Ingalls, do we have certification of our agenda today?
We do, Mr. Chair. Item 2A, required posted, published, and mailed notice. That was accomplished September 6th, September 3rd, and September 4th, respectively. Item 2B, required published notice, which was accomplished on August 27th. Item 2C, required published notice. That was accomplished on September 10th, 2020. With that, you have proper notice and jurisdiction to proceed on all items. I do understand item 2A is to be continued.
Thank you, sir. Do any of the commissioners have any disclosure for any item on our agenda today?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I have none. So our first item on the agenda is 2A is 2200 Twilby Road, WZ Ranch, horseboarding used by special review. This is project file US 2020-002. Ask Jamie Rice, our senior planner, if she is on the line.
This is Kurt Whitekin. I'll be covering for her today since she is a little bit under the weather. She is in attendance if you do have questions. But yes, this item will be continued to perfect the notice, and it will be continued for the BCC till October 13th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m.
Very well. So the reason, Kurt, was to perfect the notice?
Yes, there was some missing notice, yes.
Okay, I will bring it back to the board to see what the desire of the board is to this item to be continued.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to continue the hearing for the 2200 Twilby Road horse boarding use by special review to October 13, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Project file US 2020-002.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion passes. Moves us item number 2B. It's a resolution rezoning a parcel of land totaling 10.6 acres located in Douglas County, Colorado, from rural residential to large rural residential. Presenting for staff, Kurt Whitekin.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. If I could get the ball, all right. Good afternoon, Kurt Whitekin, representing Planning Services and also for Jamie Rice. The request is a zone map change. The project is DR 2020-001, and I do believe the representative Karen Workman is also available should you have questions later. The request is for a zone map change from rural residential to large rural residential, LRR, for lot 32 of El Dorado Acres. The map change request will allow for agricultural uses of the property that are currently not allowed in the rural residential zone district. The subject land is located approximately a half-mile northeast of South State Highway 83 and Palmer Divide Road, or South County Line Road intersection. The property is 10.6 acres in size. This is an aerial, and as you can see from this is outlined in green parcel here in the El Dorado Acres subdivision. The zone map change process is described in Section 112 of the Douglas County zoning resolution. These parcels are eligible for a zone map change as it is a rezoning of land when requested by the landowner to bring it into compliance with the comprehensive master plan, and that is the nature of this request here. The process begins with our standard process. The request is prepared by staff, forwarded to various referral agencies for comment. Courtesy notice is sent of the application and process is sent to abutting property owners. Staff analyzes the request and the applicant has the opportunity to address any issues identified through the referral process. Following published public notice, the request is considered by the Planning Commission, and they heard this one on September 14th, 2020. And then their recommendation is forwarded to the county commissioners, and that is where we are here today. And as a summary of the Planning Commission, they heard this on September 14th, 2020. The request was recommended for approval to the board with a vote of 6-0. 2 members of the public spoke to the PC regarding concerns of the zone map change to allow over-intensive uses that may have a negative impact to the El Dorado Acres neighborhood. The PC confirmed with staff during the hearing that uses such as a dog kennel or training facility would require a use by special review. And as a background, this parcel was zoned from agricultural to residential in 1955, and later, based on parcel sizes, it was rezoned to RR in 1982. The property was bordered by RR to the southwest, and the rest is bordered by A1 zone districts to the north and east. The parcel is not located within any floodplain as well. The parcel was platted as a tract in the El Dorado Acres in 1969. And then the Board of County Commissioners approved a replat in early 2020 that changed the tract into a buildable parcel of 10.6 acres in size. The proposed LRR zone district is available for lots of 9 acres or greater in area and are allowed to have agricultural and animal uses as principal use. That's one of the distinctions between that and the current RR zone district. Neither of the ag or animal uses is allowed as a principal use in the RR zone district. Staff has evaluated the zone map change request. The zone map change brings the zoning designation of the site into greater conformance with the comprehensive master plan provisions for non-urban levels of development, which supports opportunities for owners of rural lands to continue ranching and farming activities. In staff's assessment, the request meets the eligibility requirements. The board, Section 11206 of the Douglas County Zoning Resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's consideration of the zone map change request and are noted on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Also, the applicant, I believe, is available on the line to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions for staff at this time?
Kurt, I'd just like to thank you for having to pick this up at the last minute and presenting it. You did a very nice job. Thank you.
It's been a while. Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions, but I want to hear from the applicant first, so thank you.
Yes, thanks, Kurt. I'll reserve my questions for after the applicant's presentation.
Kurt, as I understand on these 2 parcels, there are no structures on either parcel right now?
No, there is no structures on one parcel. Given its tract designation over the years, I think that's why nothing was developed earlier, or before it became a buildable lot.
Very well. Okay, no further questions this time. This time, I'll ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the board regarding the application.
Yes, hi, thanks everyone. This is Karen Workman. I really don't have much to add other than what was presented last time. If anybody would like kind of the history of this, I'd be happy to share that with you of making an initial offer on the property, finding out it was not LRR zoned, going through the process with the owner at that time to remap it from a tract to a lot so it was buildable, and then following the next step to LRR. So if you've got any questions about the process that I've kind of been going through with you, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Workman. And Ms. Workman, would you mind stating your name, spelling of your last name, and then your address for the record, please?
Yes, absolutely. So it's Karen Workman, Workman, and my address is 499 West Triboulet, that's Triboulet Lane, and that's Santan Valley, Arizona, 85143.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for the applicant?
Ms. Workman, thank you for joining us remotely. I just have a couple of questions for you. I think the first is in reference to some correspondence we received from adjacent neighbors in the community. Can you indicate whether or not your intent is to establish a kennel operation at some point?
It's absolutely not my intent. I'm very familiar with Colorado's Pet Animal Care Facilities Act, and I don't meet the requirements of that. I do occasionally breed. If I do, it's, one litter maybe every 2 or 3 years at the most. And the breed that I have, the litters are very small. We're lucky if there's, 3 or 4 puppies in a litter. The intent has always been for me to find acreage when I started looking to move back to Colorado. I looked in both Douglas County and Elbert to get within the zoning that would allow me to have more than 4 dogs, because I currently have 6. Right. And I do show my dogs. I've got a couple of them are top ranked dogs. And I didn't want to, trying to do everything by the book, spend a whole lot of money building a beautiful home. And but I also have horses too, but won't have anywhere near the limit that's allowed even in the RRR area for horses, but didn't want to run into any issues with having more than the amount of dogs allowed. And so when I looked for property, it was looking specifically for LRR zoned property and understanding that it's 9 acres or greater, and usually within low density areas. Looked at several properties, found this one that was for sale by owner, and made an offer on it, and then started to do the inquiry and found out initially that it wasn't a buildable lot. Right, that it was designated as a tract, and not sure, what has happened over the years, but it's been sold many times and been collecting residential taxes on it. When I found that out, I backed away, got out of the contract. The current owner then went through trying to figure out what happened, how do we make it a buildable lot, contacted me back and said, look, we think we've got this resolved. Property's still available. If you haven't found anything, the property's still available if you want to make an offer on it. So that's when the second time I submitted to the county the inquiry about figuring out why it wasn't LRR zoned as well. And that's the process that, we're in here, right? So that's kind of the history of this. So it's really to be able to move from a 4-dog limit to an 8-dog limit, not to put any kind of commercial kennel, training facility, anything like that up. And bottom line, I get that to do that, I would have to go through a different process, not this process, to do that.
Okay, that's helpful. And then in reference to some of the correspondence, is it your impression that the increase in the number of dogs would also elevate the noise to your surrounding neighbors?
Is it my impression that it would?
Do 2 more dogs at your property increase
quiet.
The noise?
I'm sorry, say again?
Okay, so would adding 2 dogs to your property increase the noise levels?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
I don't think anybody, where I live now even has any idea I have 1 dog.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Workman.
Ms. Workman, thank you for that explanation. You answered the question that I was going to ask you, so thank you.
I'll wait for further questions later. So if no further questions, I will open it up for public comment. So if there's anyone in the room who would like to address the board, please come forward, and I will also ask online after we're done with the room. And if you would state your name, spelling of your last name, and your address for the record, please. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. My name is Grant, G-R-A-N-T, Carey, C-A-R-E-Y. I have the properties that are in the public records as 15120, 15092, and 15450 State Highway 83. And I am an adjacent owner of agricultural land to the north of the property in question. First off, I would like to make it known that I'm not opposed to having the neighbor have dogs or have horses. That's not my intent. I'm here to ask whether or not the county commissioners could see themselves offering a variance to this property rather than a permanent change to the LLR. The reason being that I believe everything that Ms. Workman has said is accurate and is her genuine intent. But at some point in the future, we may not have someone who has the integrity and the kinds of scruples that Ms. Workman is obviously representing. My concern is that someone else may have a desire to put in a boarding facility or may not go to the effort that she has gone to be permitted to do her thing, her building. We already have 2 kennels in the community around us. While I agree with her, the noise is probably not going to come from her today. I'm more concerned about the future of that property rather than her, and she may stay there for 25 years. But if there was any possible consideration on the part of the zoning to allow her to have a variance that lived only with her and that someone would have to come back to you and ask for it to change from RR to LLR, or LRR, excuse me, in the future, I think it would be to the benefit of the community. I would remind the commissioners that originally that property was intended to be a park for the El Dorado community. And then through a series of changes and perhaps even maybe some disasters that happened to the original Douglas County courthouse where all the records were kept, it was forgotten that that property was supposed to be part of a park for El Dorado Acres. It's acknowledged also that El Dorado Acres has lost its homeowners association, so they can't be here to represent themselves in an official capacity. But obviously, I think the intent of increasing the number of pets in that residential area was not part of the homeowners association, and probably but still should be honored in the master planning of Douglas County. So. Those are my thoughts. I hope that you'll take it into strong consideration that perhaps a variance could be provided rather than a zoning change.
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the board? Seeing no one in the room, Ms. Dunning, is there anyone on the phone would like to address the board?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. I have Jody Ritchie on the line. You are unmuted, sir. Go ahead.
And Mr. Ritchie, if you would please state your name, spelling of your last name, and your address for the record, please.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Jody Ritchie. Last name is Ritchie, and I'm at 15731 El Dorado Acres in Larkspur. Zip code is 80118. I share 400 yards of property with lot 32, so property line. So I just shared this with the previous meeting, but I wanted to, echo what Grant just said. And the issue for me isn't so much what Ms. Workman is saying she wants to do. Of course, you know, 6 dogs being added to an empty lot, I think there's going to be some noise added, but I understand. And we live in a rural area, so I'm not too concerned about that. My concern really is the change to LRR and what that opens up. I understand that a dog kennel, you know, an operation would require special use approval in the future. However, under LRR, it was stated earlier, that's primarily agricultural and it allows a primary animal use of the property. So you could have unlimited fowl without special use, if I'm not mistaken. And so when we purchased our property in El Dorado Acres, it was zoned as a subdivision. Everything was rural residential. And we made our decision based on that. We knew there was agriculture around us, but it wasn't right behind us. It was across the road, or it was north of us where they're boarding horses on large acreage. We don't know what the future owners are going to plan for this lot. And it's just concerning to me that during the previous commission meeting, one of the reasons that was stated by a couple of the planning members was that they didn't want to take away the right of the landowner to have an LRR property when it met with the comprehensive master plan. My concern there is, what about the rights of the 4 property owners that purchased thinking it was rural residential and now it's being changed and the use could be changed? I just want to make sure that that voice is heard and understood. Again, I don't have anything against Ms. Workman. I also, in my letter to the commissioners, suggested maybe a variance and allowing for the extra dogs in an RR property, but not rezoning. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Ms. Dunning, anyone else on the line?
Yes, sir, Commissioner, one moment. I have a Russell on the line. Sir, you are...
This is Russell Pitts.
And could you
Can
spell
you hear
your
me?
last name and your address for the record, please?
Last name is Pitts. Address is 15705 El Dorado Way, Larkspur, Colorado, 80118. I would like to echo what Grant has said, as well as what Jody has said. We are the property adjacent to Ms. Workman. We have also submitted a letter expressing our concerns, but one of the things that has not been mentioned here is Ms. Workman has put the property up for sale, and if the rezoning were to go through and she decided that she wanted to put the property up for sale, then the property would be open to any sort of changes that LRR would allow. In talking, a friend of mine called on the property, talked to the realtor. The realtor said that the property would go back on the market in the future. So taking that into consideration, I would also urge that a variance be allowed versus a rezoning. And that's all the additional I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts.
Thank you.
Ms. Dunning, anyone else?
Thank you, Commissioner. I see no other hands raised.
And again, no one else in the room? Very well. I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any further questions, discussion, deliberation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. If Ms. Workman is still on the phone, we heard some testimony that perhaps the property is currently listed for sale. Can you confirm or deny that?
We had that discussion 2 weeks ago. The property is not currently for sale. And as I explained at that time when this was brought up, I mean, honestly, going through this process, I have to be a little concerned as I'm getting ready to spend about $1.5 million to build a home and a barn and fencing and everything else that goes with that. Of what other concerns I might be faced with in this neighborhood. So I am still weighing that, but wanted to go through this process, see how this came out as I make my final decision, what I want to do there. But I am the property owner at this point, and it is my right to request this rezoning change.
Certainly, it is your right to request that. And no doubt, this county and this board respects private property rights and individual liberties. Of course, that is always an element of our questions when others' liberties are impacted. And I'm not certain that that is occurring here, but that's certainly a consideration in my mind. Perhaps another question that staff could help answer for us is with regard to process. Is it more appropriate that this be a variance or a use by special review as suggested by some of the testimony we received, or is this the appropriate process for this applicant?
Kurt White, can I hear for staff again? The variance really isn't applicable for an animal limitation. We don't see that. So going forward, if they had, a kennel is not an allowed use currently in the RR zone district. LRR allows for the more dogs and also allows for them, if she wanted to have more than the 8 dogs, they could apply for a use by special review to do that kennel. That's the standard process for that, that use.
So it'd be thank you, Kurt. So it would be a USR for a kennel, but not necessarily for more animals.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and Commissioners, I feel I should weigh in on this as well. Lance Ingalls, Douglas County Attorney. The applicant does have a due process right to have her application considered on its merits. She's gone through our process. She's made a case that she believes she meets the approval criteria, and she is entitled to a hearing on that. It would be a different issue for you if she were requesting a variance or if she were willing to change her application, but that's not the case here. She's indicated that she wants to determine how this process comes out, and that leaves you, as a matter of due process, with the approval criteria and a determination as to whether you believe they have been met. One thing you've been asked to consider by several folks is what may happen in the future, and I would caution you against that. That's not necessarily relevant to the current approval criteria and the current application. I understand that that is something that would concern you, but it need not concern you for purposes of determining if today's application meets the approval criteria. I just want to be careful you don't get on grounds that we can't defend.
Well, and I appreciate that, Mr. Ingalls. I think one of the considerations I have, and maybe you can help me with this, is how a change in the zoning could impact the neighborhood. And so for that reason, just wanting to determine whether or not this is even ripe for this sort of application. I'm hearing that it is. Certainly respect Ms. Workman's due process rights. And we'll be making a determination, at least as one commissioner, based on the criteria for this application.
Right. Well, and for some of our rezoning criteria, we do require compatibility to be a consideration. For this one, a map change is really considered a downzoning. And so what staff has indicated is the purpose of this downzoning and the stated rationale for this downzoning is to come into compliance with the master plan. So this applicant, I understand, has made a case that based on the size of the lot, she believes it better qualifies for the downzone of LRR. I don't recall if staff made a discussion point about the comprehensive master plan in this area, but they did highlight that particular criteria being the one the applicant believes she meets. So compatibility is not necessarily a criteria for that downzoning.
Okay. Just by way of adding to that, the LRR does have increased setback numbers when compared to the RR zone district from the street and adjacent sides. Also, any sort of uses for stables and things and corrals have setbacks from property owners and property lines and devegetation standards as well. Those also apply for the RR areas with certain animals, but they are larger in the LRR zone district, just generally.
Okay. And the position of staff under that last criteria is that the rezoning would be in compliance with the comprehensive master plan?
Yes, we're moving towards allowing those agricultural and more rural uses of animals and more animals in the non-urban areas, yes.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd just like to clarify, I don't think that these are criteria. I think that these are 5 opportunities that can be used for a map change. And the last one, according to page 49 of the packet, talks about this bringing this parcel more in compliance with the master plan.
Correct.
Thank you.
Question for Ms. Workman. Thank you for bringing this forward, and appreciate your willingness to go through this process and be attentive to your neighbors. I really believe you are. I think you present yourself very well. I know you're in the show world, understand that a little bit. You take probably very good, extraordinary care of your animals. And we know this, not just on this property, but others, that dog barking is quite a nuisance. It's actually a big challenge in many parts and in many, even in urban areas. So it does create many problems. It's been noted there's a couple of kennels near this area. Ms. Workman, it's not part of the criteria, but can you enlighten us a little bit to your situation? I'm not going to infer that your dogs are barking problems, but being that we know what dogs do, can you address a little bit how you understand this situation of barking dogs, how you might address it, and maybe what your plans would be?
Well, I mean, I don't have barking dogs. Like I said, my dogs are each about 15 pounds apiece. I think even if they did bark, like I said, I'm on 2.5 acres here. You don't hear it. They're a brachycephalic breed, which tends to have a, kind of a throatier, a deeper bark than a larger breed. And I don't have that problem. It's not ever been an issue due to the, type of dogs and the breed that I have. Again, my whole intent here is making sure I'm in compliance with the number of dogs I'm allowed to have. And it's a 10.6 acre, large property, which I had been looking for. And in RR, you're only allowed 4 dogs, period. And there's no special use, right, or variance or anything else that I can do in Douglas County to be able to have other than, flying under the radar, which is not my intent, especially spending this kind of money. And why I was always looking for property in Douglas County that was LRR or ag zoned, right, so that I didn't have to, deal with that. And if I had more dogs, in the future, which I don't, I mean, I'm a working person still, and I can only care for, so many animals at a time. The special use would give me that capability, but 8 dogs is plenty. And that's what LRR gives you by default. And that's really the intent of this. So, I get the barking dog thing. I wouldn't want to live near barking dogs. We actually stood out there on the property the last time I flew out there, trying to hear the kennel that's all the way at the other end of Arvston. Never heard a barking dog. I heard barking dogs coming from within the subdivision that's, the smaller acreage that's behind this property, but I didn't hear anything from the kennels. And again, I just don't think even with, 6 little 15-pound dogs that anybody would even hear if they all started barking at the same time. I mean, they're pretty quiet little dogs.
Very well. Being the small dog they are, is the plan that they would be more inside than outside? Could you just
So there's a custom room that's being designed in my house as I had designed here in Arizona, which is an indoor-outdoor. So the dogs will have a dog door and they'll be able to go into an outdoor patio space, but not run the property, right? So the outdoor patio space is probably maybe 12 by 24 with the drain and everything, so they can kind of come in and go as they please. But they're not going to be, if I let the dogs run the property, they'd be food for the owls or the coyotes or something like that out there, which is absolutely not going to happen. So.
Very well. And you probably understand the concern that you may not be there forever, but it would go with the property. So
I do understand that concern, certainly get it, but I also understand that that's not what I'm asking for, right? And for anybody else that buys the property, they would have to go through special use, right? And then make the case for barking dogs and the smell of waste, having so many dogs, I mean, I think there is a process for that. And that's not what I'm asking for. This process is not me requesting a kennel. It's me requesting that the land is applied to the limits of LRR or the amount of, indoor pets or household pets versus RR based on the size of the lot. I'm not asking to build a kennel facility, and to do so, I have to go through a completely different process where then we could detail how to mitigate, dogs barking and smells and, everything else that goes along with having to put a pet animal care facility up.
right, and I'm not inferring that you are applying for a kennel use, but if this would be approved, it goes to LRR, and that goes with the property, unless I'm looking at Attorney Ingles that I'm being correct on this, that would go with the property. They'd be allowed 8 dogs on LRR, whether it was sold or whoever the owner was.
Put more simply, yes, the zoning runs with the land. So if it's rezoned or downzoned in this case, the zoning would apply unless and until further action by the board.
Very well, thank you.
And I guess the only other thing I would add, if you'll allow me, is that the entire north border of El Dorado Acres, including my property, is ag zoned, right? So the same problem exists there. If the owner, who I know is on the phone right now, decides to sell one or both of those 35-acre parcels to somebody else, they can do the same thing, right? And border, some of the same neighbors here and even more, right? And request when that property gets sold that, they get special use to put up a kennel. Not to mention the fact that on Arfston, there are 10 other properties with Arfston addresses that are also ag zoned, very close, much closer than the kennel. Same thing. Any of those owners currently sold, who knows, the next person could come and request to put up a kennel or a hog farm or anything else. And those properties are literally across the street. So, I don't understand why this property would be any different than, the majority of other properties on Arfston Road.
Thank you, Ms. Workman. Further questions, deliberation?
I don't have any other questions. I think it's important to note that in our packet, there was explanation about the zoning resolution and that there's these 5 reasons that a map change can be utilized. And one of them is to bring more compliance to the master plan. And so I think that Ms. Workman has gone through a lot of due diligence to make sure that her property that she currently owns will meet her needs, that she can build a home here, that she can have her animals. And I appreciate the neighbors that are here talking about this because they too care about their properties. I live in Highlands Ranch and the guy next to me has 5 dogs. And let me tell you, I know what 5 dogs sound like at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're talking about 10 acres here. And so while I understand your concerns for quiet, I think this property owner is doing due diligence and has worked with staff. And there was one of the slides that staff did going through here that said that this request meets the requirements or something to that effect. Do you have that there, Kurt? right there. Thank you.
You know, I also read in the packet, Kurt, issue with regard to agricultural use for LRR, and that may be more intensive use associated with the property. Did that come into the staff assessment at all, or am I misreading that?
No, I don't. Generally, we don't see ag as an over-intensive use when it's in the proper LRR or A1 zoning. That's an expected use in the rural areas or non-urban areas.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, and I certainly appreciate Ms. Workman going through her due diligence. No doubt the private property right is of high regard. I've already mentioned that. Having served on the Planning Commission, and I know Commissioner Partridge has as well, I think our ears tend to prick up when we hear a lot of neighborhood complaints, or at least neighborhood engagement. And so oftentimes what can resolve that is engagement with neighbors prior to us seeing it. And so just want to thank the neighbors and thank Ms. Workman for that ongoing conversation that they're having about the use of their properties.
I really want to thank the audience for coming today and their comments too, because I think they brought some very good ideas at least. And I think probably the explanation is, hopefully explanation is understood. A variance is quite a challenge, not necessarily applicable. But I think you're being very wise to at least address the issues. And I didn't hear anybody just outright, and that's what's comforting to know. I think that's great in Douglas County. We have a very civil group and very sensible group. And I think Ms. Workman has heard that. I think she's given some very good explanations of who she is, what she's planning to raise. And we always have the concern, if it was sold or something different. But at least we do know it's not a kennel situation. That is a use by special review regardless. That's not what is being asked. I think Ms. Workman brings forward a reasonable request and has followed the criteria. And really don't see the reason why something like this wouldn't go forward. But as we always do ask to, and Commissioner Layden, you reference that, is the neighborly aspect of it. And that's what really works. And it does sound like Ms. Workman has been that kind of a neighbor, so we'd hope that that would continue to be the case and have no reason to believe that through this hearing. If there's no further questions or deliberation, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve a resolution rezoning a parcel of land totaling 10.6 acres located in Douglas County, Colorado, from rural residential to large rural residential.
Second.
We have a motion and second. No further discussions. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Congratulations, Ms. Workman. Our next item. 2C is a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the Douglas County Housing Partnership to finance the Bridgewater Castle Rock project solely for the purposes of satisfying Section 147(f) of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, repealing action heretofore taken in conflict herewith, and authorizing officials of the county to do all other things necessary or advisable to complete the transaction approved in the resolution. Presenting for staff, Tina Dale.
Thank you. The request before you today is to adopt a resolution approving the issuance of a private activity bonds, or PABs, by the Douglas County Housing Partnership. The purpose is to finance redevelopment of an existing 91-unit skilled nursing facility owned by Bridgewater Castle Rock, ALF, LLC. The hearing is solely to satisfy Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. On November 12th of 2013, the intergovernmental agreement between Douglas County, Castle Rock, Parker, Lone Tree, and Douglas County Housing Partnership was amended. The purpose of the amendment was to grant DCHP the authority to issue, manage, and preserve the PAB assigned to these jurisdictions. Bridgewater Castle Rock was previously awarded $32,775,450 in multifamily PABs for this project. Bridgewater would like to request an additional $7,224,550 to complete the bond financing for a total of $40 million. With the BCC's approval, Bridgewater may request the remainder from the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority's statewide balance. Bridgewater Castle Rock is shown here near the center of the map in unincorporated Douglas County. The property is located at 4001 Home Street in the north side of Castle Rock. A senior continuum of care facility is located on the site. Plans include up to 142 units consisting of 45 independent living units, 63 assisted living units, and 34 memory care units. Of these, 97 will be affordable for income-eligible residents at or below 60% of the area median income. This rendering illustrates Bridgewater Castle Rock when the redevelopment is completed. Because the property is located in unincorporated Douglas County and the BCC is the highest publicly elected body in Douglas County, it is in your purview to authorize the issuance of the PAB. Approval of this resolution creates no debt or liability for the county, the state of Colorado, or any other political subdivision, and will not give rise to a fiscal liability of DCHP, the county, the state, or any other political subdivision, or charge against their general credit or taxing powers. It's staff's recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners approve the resolution allowing Douglas County Housing Partnership to issue up to $40 million in PAB to redevelop the senior housing property. This request complies with county approval standards and policies. This concludes my presentation. I'll be available should you have any questions. And Diane Leavesley, Executive Director of the DCHP, John Bales, and Fred Marienthal, both of DCHP's bond counsel, are available online to answer any questions you may have.
Very well. Questions for staff at this time?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none, thanks.
And I have none. Thank you, Tina. And I know you, I didn't catch all the names. We know Diane Leavesley. So I asked, we'll ask Diane if she would like to say anything, and then also the other two names, if they would like to address the board regarding this resolution. Diane, are you on the phone?
Commissioner Partridge, Diane had technical difficulties and was not able to attend.
Very well. And the two other names, I know I heard Craig.
Fred Marienthal and John Bales.
Good. And are either of the sirs on the line that would like to address the board? Ms. Dunning, do you see either one of those names or hands?
Yes, sir. I have Fred and John available online. It looks like Fred has unmuted himself. Fred, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And Fred, if you wouldn't mind stating your name, spelling of your last name, and your address for the record, please.
You bet. It's Fred Marienthal. I'm a partner with QTAC Rock. We're bond counsel to the Douglas County Housing Partnership. My address is 1801 California Street, Denver, Colorado. I just wanted to say thank you for considering this matter for us. And it is strictly to comply with federal tax law and does not create a debt or liability for the county or the housing partnership.
Thank you, Fred. Now I'll ask if there's any questions for Mr. Marienthal.
I have none, thank you.
And I have none, thank you.
And I have none. Thank you, Mr. Marienthal. And anyone else who would like to speak?
Commissioner, this is Troy, your host. I have John Bales on the line. I'm going to go ahead and unmute him.
Very well, thank you.
John, do you have anything to add? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is John Bales. I'm with QTech Rock. We're a bond counsel to Douglas County Housing Partnership. My address is 1801 California Street, Denver, Colorado, 80222. I don't have any further comments beyond what Fred Marienthal had said.
And Mr. Bales, would you mind spelling your last name, please?
Yeah, it's B-A-L-E-S.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Bales?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none.
And I have none. Thank you, Mr. Bales and Mr. Marienthal. This time, I will open up for anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, either in the room or online on the phone. Ms. Dunning, are there any hands raised?
I have no hands raised, Commissioner.
And no one in the room. So at this time, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any further questions, discussion, and/or motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the Douglas County Housing Partnership to finance the Bridgewater Castle Rock project, solely for the purpose of satisfying Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Very well. Congratulations. That concludes our items on our hearing for this afternoon. We are adjourned.